This cool house is a remodel of a 1940s house located in Brentwood, California. The architect Kurt Krueger has managed to update the building with a fresh new look through the use of some clever materials, spatial definition, and knocking out some walls to give the home a more spacious look without increasing the overall square footage or increasing the building envelope. Well, here he is. Hello, Kurt.
Hi.
Great to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Thank you so much for inviting us to see another one of your projects. Now, I've got to tell you, this is probably the smallest house that we've ever done on Behind the Gates, and I wanted to do it for good reason. I wanted to show viewers what you can create a luxury home in a small space, and that's what it's all about here, right?
Absolutely. At this house, we had a small house to work with, so there's key things that you need to be aware of when working with a small house that we can talk about.
Well, first of all, we're in the front yard here, which is kind of like the backyard, right?
Yes.
It's like a rear yard, but it's like we're in the front here, but the street's just on the other side of here.
It is, and again, this is a very small lot, 50 foot by 100 foot, so there's really no rear yard in here, so this is the rear yard that is the front courtyard.
We've done a wonderful job already, we can tell. Obviously great having some water so you can't hear any of the traffic noise, right?
Yes.
It's so tranquil sitting here. And this is a great thing because this is a fire pit. A great place to kind of like just really enjoy on a Saturday afternoon. And if it gets too warm, you've got this kind of apparatus here.
That's right, yeah. So this is a screen that can, as an awning, that can move back and forth to give you different levels of sunshade so that you can pull it all the way back to see the sky or pull it all the way across for complete blockage of sun.
Just love that because it gets really hot here in California in the winter, in the summer. So what a wonderful place to just dwell.
And one of the other key things out here as well is for privacy that we looked at was creating a fence that allowed you to see out, but doesn't allow people on the street level to see in.
Just perfect. Okay, so timber is, wood is really big in this design, right?
Absolutely, and this is a Douglas fir wood that we use throughout for the doors and windows as well as the exterior fencing.
Okay, so what was the house like before? I mean, it's a remodel, right?
It is a remodel. So it was originally in 1948. It was a mid-century modern house. It was blue stuccoed with some Japanese-esque touches that they tried to make over the years. So it was in quite disrepair.
Can we get inside and take a tour?
Let's see it.
So this original roof line here.
Yes, so the original roof line, the sloped roof, was all original. Like I said, the framing of the house, the roof lines, everything was kept as original. What we did was we stripped everything of the finishes and then refinished everything.
We should tell people there's a team that do this, right? You're the architect and the builder.
Yes.
You guys work very closely together.
Yes, so Reza Parian, Rhino Construction, this was a design-build collaboration between both of us. So that was critical in this because when you start going into a project like this, especially an existing house, you find all kinds of things that you
don't know
expecting.
what you're getting into.
Yes.
Once you pull that drywall back, you don't know what you've got, right?
That's right.
The nice thing between our two firms is that he's part of construction, hands-on, and I have some hands-on with him in the design. So he's out on the site during construction, unlike other architects where he's hands-on, so he's making sure things are done correctly.
So you have to do a lot of on-your-feet improvising, and sometimes the difficulty about doing that in the traditional method where you have an architect over here and a contractor over there and not as a team is that it's more difficult to be quick on your feet and to do different things and to just explore and try out new things on site rather than trying to do it independently.
Making the most of the existing house, Kurt and his team created new openings for windows, doors and skylights and removed unnecessary walls, which allowed the main living area to feel as one large space, yet within it, some smaller and more intimate zones.
What we wanted to do was really incorporate the entire space. We have a small home, and to make it feel as open as possible.
Well, there's hardly any walls here. I mean, and they're see-through.
Absolutely, and that was one of the key things for a small space is making it as open as possible so it feels larger, but within that space, creating those partitions that are see-through that you can still keep a visual connection, but at the same time have different zones for sitting, so you don't always feel like you're in the middle of everything that's going on. You can have alcoves of conversation. Another key thing for a small space is to focus on the details, because you don't have a large house that you have all this extra visual eye candy to look at. It's very important to look at the smaller things that people notice, everything down to door handles, baseboards, the cabinetry. The smaller things really matter in a small house because people are much more,
and they're close to it.
They're close to it, and they stay put a lot more than they do in a larger house where you walk around much more.
That is so interesting. I mean, you're really good at what you do, aren't you?
Oh, if you say so, I'll take your endorsement.
I mean, just on that, I mean, looking at the kitchen here, that splashback right there is just so clever. I mean, is that a ceramic tile?
No, that is a natural stone, and interestingly enough, we have that repeated here as well as the fireplace, as well as the master bathroom.
He brought some tile in, which I'm sure he showed you in the bathroom, which was from Italy. And the costs associated with it are astronomical. So we started looking into how could we do that here. Spoke to a few people, and we basically did the kitchen backsplash here at probably a quarter of the price.
This was inspired by a stone that we had seen that's an Italian stone that we loved, but we also knew that importing it and cost were maybe prohibited on it. So what we did was I knew what that stone was, so between myself and my partner who's the general contractor, we worked with our stone manufacturer and found a way to water jet it so that we got the exact same effect.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, and so we did all of this locally, but this was a custom product that then they installed in the field and saved us a lot of time and expense.
We got pretty much the same sort of look as we wanted to with the Italian tile. So that's where the collaboration comes in, because from a practical point of view, from a builder's point of view, and then you've got the architect coming in. A lot of times architects have these sort of grandiose, sort of like, visions, and it's difficult to then implement that and put that into construction.
That's one great thing about using an architect is they will go to that extra, you'll stretch yourself to get that look, because you got buy-in, you do not want to let that idea go.
Yes.
And you'll do whatever it takes to make it happen.
You have to take pride in what you do, and yes, and always pushing the boundaries is something we pride ourselves in. And when we're also the general contractors, it makes a big difference because we're able to have that flexibility to do that.
Price point. What are they looking at to kind of get this kind of a look?
This kind of a look, when you take everything in with the indoors and outdoors, strip everything down, and you're basically building a new house with the exception of a new concrete floor and the framing. You're looking at upwards of $1 million for this.
Perfect. Okay, now the master bedroom suite was a real problem. Let's go and check that out.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the master bedroom suite. It's really quite big.
It is big, and what we tried to do is make it feel bigger than it originally was. Originally this bedroom was the master suite, however there was an awkward addition here where this wall is, where that was their master bathroom, just in that corner
in
there.
that little space.
Yes, and there was this extra space here that was just completely wasted. So what we decided to do with this was make this into a small study area with a window looking out, and then this into a reading zone where we added a couple of extra skylights just to allow a little bit more natural light into this northeast corner of the house, which tends to be the darker area of the house.
Yeah. The smaller zones work really well here, but still work when the house needs to be a large space, such as entertaining. And by the way, I don't see a television here.
Why is there no television in this room? There is a television in this room, but we don't want it to basically look like there's a television in this room. So behind that one panel there, as you can see behind me, there is a television, but sometimes it detracts from the design when you have, an electronic piece of equipment in there. So trying to come up with a little design of a track to basically be able to push this back and forward. And then obviously when it's over on this side, it's still part of the design. So you never ever lose any of this design by doing that.
Okay, one more question I do want to ask you, and what you've done really well here. This was a very dark house, and there's so much light here. For people who are watching at home, how can they get lots of light in their home?
Well, the main way is to look at your exterior walls. So you can do a few things. You can open up exterior walls by adding new doors and windows. One great thing to do is adding high windows. So like those transom windows that you see in our background here, which are high windows that allow more light in than you would low windows. The other thing is skylights, additional skylights that we dotted, especially across this main space, which allows you to have a bit of a procession, but all along the way you have an even amount of light. And one of the things the owners love about this is that in most any time of the day until it's dusk is that you can have all the lights off and still have a sufficient amount of light in the space.
Well, there's skylights everywhere. How do you open them? Obviously, it must be remote because they're up pretty high.
There is. Well, there's two different ways. You can have a remote, and it can be an electronic that most people desire. Our homeowners were a bit unique about this, and they actually wanted the manual hand crank in order to get exercise. They thought it was a fun thing to do to open them up by hand, so they did not want to have the motorized one.
I'm not getting those. I'm getting the motorized ones.
I would too, yes.
He was quite happy with the fact that he just wanted to crank them. We went through it several times with him. We said, please don't do it. It's going to be much, much better if it's electrical. But at the end of the day, you can't force somebody to do something, especially if they're your client and they're paying you. So.
You've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Had a wonderful time.